Hi, I'm Marco Rubio, with you again on our weekly segment of reaching into our mailbox and our emails and reading to you some of the letters we've been getting. Now, of course, the attention of the entire country, and therefore the attention of our state, is on the debt limit debate here in Washington, D.C., and rightfully so. Before I reach into the mailbag, let me just remind you that this is an issue we've been talking about for months. Early this year, I wrote an op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal where I outlined the way forward, and I said that this debt limit debate was the last best chance we would have to deal with this debt issue straight on. See, ultimately, the real issue we're facing is not the debt limit. It's the debt. It's the reason why America stands on the verge of losing its AAA credit rating, the best in the world. So we'll talk about that more in a minute, but I wanted to, rather than just pick a single letter, what I've done is gotten some excerpts because many of the letters are starting to have a common theme, and it's a frustration about Washington not moving forward, and quite frankly, some fear about what it means to people in their daily lives. Our first email is from Elizabeth from St. Petersburg. She wrote, "You and all of our elected representatives need to remember that over 50 million folks are on Social Security that we have paid for and earned. This is not an entitlement. How dare anyone suggest that tax cuts to the wealthy and corporations are sacrosanct while our very survival depends on this income?" Let me just say to Elizabeth that they're two unrelated issues. Social Security is money that is taken out of people's paycheck every month. And you're right, there are 50 million people on Social Security. One of them is my mom, and I would never want to see her benefits affected, and they shouldn't be. This is not the government's money. It's not my money. This is your money. People have paid that throughout their lifetime of work, and it's supposed to be in a trust fund and sitting there for you with interest when you retire. That's not what's happened. Long before I ever got to Washington, D.C., politicians in both parties were reaching into that account and using it to pay for other things. And that's one of the reasons why we're facing many of the problems that we're facing today. As far as raising taxes on the rich, nothing is sacrosanct. On the contrary, we should have a fair tax code where everybody pays their fair share. But it should be a simplified tax code. What we're talking about right now is making the existing tax code we have even more complicated. And class warfare has never been good for America, especially when many of the people whose taxes the government will attempt to raise will either be able to evade it or will simply stop creating jobs. Our unemployment is at 9% here in the country. In Florida, it's higher than that. We cannot afford to raise taxes on job creators. And I think any tax increases, given this economy, is a terrible idea. Not because we're trying to help one group over another, but because we cannot afford to increase unemployment. And it's been proven that tax increases kill job creation. Ron emails from Tallahassee saying, "I'm disappointed and offended by the way Democrats characterize and try to scare seniors. I hope you and other conservatives will keep stressing the need for reduced spending, a balanced budget, and that you are not targeting those of us already on Social Security and Medicare." Well, Ron, that's been our message all along, is that this is not about balancing the budget on the back of Social Security or Medicare recipients. On the contrary, I don't think anything should change for people that are on Social Security or Medicare right now. This has always been about what my generation is going to inherit and what we need to accept. The fact of the matter is that if things continue the way they are, I'm 40, but by the time I retire, and even sooner, there won't be a Social Security or Medicare. I want us to save those programs, and that's why we need to start looking at serious reforms to deal with them instead of demagoguing them. We got an email from Susan in Oxford, Florida, who writes, "Why can't our government come together as one entity working to resolve this budget crisis? If you listen to the media, anything that a Democrat wants is opposed by a Republican, and anything that a Republican wants is opposed by a Democrat. Don't we teach our children to compromise, to work with others to resolve issues, to talk out issues? If we teach our children these qualities, why can't grown men and women learn or remember them?" Well, that's a great point, Susan, and it's been my frustration since I came here. I believe in compromise, but I think compromise also has to be a solution. In essence, we're not just looking for a deal here that looks good in the newspapers and gets us one day of good stories. We also have to solve the problem, because the problem is a very serious one. What we're dealing with is perhaps the most significant economic issue that's faced our country in a century. And so a compromise is not enough. It has to be a solution. And getting to solutions on major issues is not always easy. The republic takes time to work itself through. But I'm still hopeful that there are enough people in Washington, D.C. that realize that we cannot continue to spend, that 40 cents out of every dollar that we spend is borrowed money. And I hope we can reach a compromise that solves that problem. Finally, Elaine writes from Pensacola, "Do something. We in the middle class are hurting. I am working, but my husband has been unemployed for 3 years with no unemployment because this company listed him as an independent contractor. He is over 55, so no one will hire him. Get a budget passed now." Elaine, let me tell you, your story, unfortunately, is typical of many that we hear across the state. Unemployment is not just some statistic. It impacts real people in a very painful way in the real world. And I agree that we have to do something about it. I remind my colleagues all the time that while the debt may be the biggest issue in Washington, unemployment is the biggest issue in America. And more than anything else, we cannot agree to do anything as part of this debt deal or anything else that hurts the creation of jobs in the United States. And so I think we should focus on that like a laser. That's why I'm for tax reform. That's why I'm for regulatory reform. That's why I'm for getting government out of the way so Americans can do what we have done better than any people in the history of the world, and that's create jobs. Right now, people are afraid to create jobs in America. Why? Because they look at this debt and they think there's no solution to it, and the only way they're going to solve it is by raising taxes and raising interest rates. People are afraid to invest and grow companies and create jobs in an economy that they think is destined for higher taxes and higher interest rates. And to make matters worse, people are afraid because of the regulations that are being written. Every single day, these federal bureaucracies are making it harder, not easier, for job creators to create jobs. I think our #1 issue should be creating jobs, and doing something about the debt would go a long ways towards doing that. And so I'll continue to work hard and speak up on this issue because I agree with you. It is the #1 issue in America, and it is not a statistic. It has a devastating impact on the lives of real people. Well, I hope next week when I'm with you again, we will have worked something out that not only will be a deal and a compromise, but also a solution. Because you deserve to have a republic that functions, and I'll do my part to make sure that we get there. I appreciate you guys watching this broadcast, and I look forward to being back with you again. As always, it's my honor to be your United States Senator. I'll continue to work hard on your behalf here in Washington, D.C. May God bless all of you, and may God always bless our country. Thank you.